If you haven't watched the first part of this video detailing everything you need to know about the SJT, including what it is, how it's tested, how it's scored, and why it's so important, please go watch the first video and then come back to this. In this video, we're going to be talking about how we managed to score 40 plus marks in the SJT. So I started studying 1.5 months before the exam date.
I personally started studying for this exam right after my PLAB 1. I gave my PLAB in November, and then I had my exam, my SJT exam in January. So I studied for around a month and a half. I did not use any books. The resources that I used were the Good Medical Practice online PDF booklet, as well as the Good Medical Practice ethical scenarios, the UKFPO sample papers, and the past medicine question banks, and I found all of them extremely helpful in studying for this exam. I would say the most important resource is the UKFPO sample papers, and this year there's also a third sample paper with the new section, which is on the Pearson VUE website, and we will leave links to all of these papers down below.
I did do the questions in Omar Taha SJT book. Now, the explanations were actually wonderful and it gave me a real feel of how the exam might be. However, but ultimately, when me and Malvika sat down and did the 2 UKFPO practice papers, I think that is what best prepared me for this exam. It really made us understand what they're looking for. We do not recommend any books or any question banks for the SJT to be used for understanding the reasoning behind the answers. Now, every resource has its own reasoning and people do tend to get confused. So we only recommend using the answers and rationales of the UKFPO practice paper, because that is exactly what they want. However, because of the new rating section and the lack of answers and rationales on the Pearson paper, there are some paid question banks that we came across that have rating questions with answers and rationales. We have not tried them, so we don't know if they're any good, but it might be useful if you want to get a feel of how the rating questions might be.
Me and Dr. Hiba, for 1.5 months or 1 month, whatever it was, were studying separately from each other. And in this time, she went through books and I went through a lot of past papers and question banks. But genuinely, I would attribute the entirety of my marks to the last 3 days of studying that I did with her in the UK. Once we arrived in the UK, we both studied together for 3 days, and that studying is the reason that we got our marks. And you wouldn't believe it, but we got the exact same score. What we did in this time, the 3 days that we had, is that we sat down with the UKFPO sample papers and we broke down the sample paper bit by bit. Sentence by sentence, word by word, we went through everything. It took us around 2 or 3 hours to go through each section, and we genuinely just went through the entire sample paper answers with a fine-tooth comb, and we made up these different almost rules. They were like rules or mantras to go by to solve any question. We did this for the first sample paper, and then we went on to the second sample paper. And mind you, like, me and Hiba were answering the questions very differently. We have very different personalities, and we have very different morals and principles. So we answered them very differently the first time, till we went through and we really realized what the GMC was looking for. And then the second time around, we then understood, and we were answering the questions very similarly because we had these rules that we'd formed and we stuck to them. And that was what the GMC wanted us to actually do. So I would highly recommend studying with a friend. It worked really well for us. We understand that, in COVID-19, you might be remote, you might not be able to find a friend. And we wanted to kind of help you guys through that. So what we've done is we have made a course that we're going to share on Skillshare. And this is basically an SJT course where we'll be going through rules that we found during our studying and the rules that you're supposed to be using in order to answer the questions. And I think this will help loads of you to get the highest marks possible. It really made such a big difference to our studying. I'm telling you, we got the exact same mark. And basically, the course will be going through the different types of questions, and we'll be verbalizing what we were thinking at that time. And you'll basically have a list of rules which you can keep in your head and then answer any question. And hopefully, you will score as well as we did, and it will really boost your foundation program score as well as help you get a primary allocation and the allocation in one of your top preferences. Other exam giving tips that are really important, I think, are that number one, you want to work on time management. This exam is 75 questions and 140 minutes, and genuinely the time will escape you and you won't know where it went. Because you'll be sitting there thinking about a question, you'll be thinking, what would I do in this situation? What is the ideal thing to do? And it can be really easy to, not even finish an entire section and there's like 30 minutes left. So don't do that. Please, please, please pay attention on time management. When I was doing the practice questions, actually, I was finishing just on time. I'm a very fast exam giver, keep in mind. But I was finishing just on time. This was before we made up our rules while we were studying. And then actually, after we had our rules in place, in the actual exam, I was done an hour before time. I was done with my revision. I was done with all the questions. I'd marked all the sections, everything, and I had an hour left.
So when I was practicing the UKFPO papers, I did one of them timed just to get a feel of how fast the exam goes. And I think I left around 10 questions, which was really devastating when I was practicing 48 hours before the exam. But then how we prepared for this was our timing was precisely calculated per question, per section, and we used this so that we could tackle the exam efficiently. Giving our time calculations might not be helpful because the exam has changed. However, we made a time management plan for you guys, having done the Pearson paper ourselves. The time management plan that I'm giving should be the maximum time you should be taking, either per question or per section. You can calculate it as you like. We estimated that the rating questions per scenario should take 2 minutes. So 2 minutes for each scenario. So each scenario, again, will have 4 to 8 questions. It is possible to answer them in 2 minutes, all the sub-questions, because they are one line. So that equals a total of 36 minutes. For the MCQ questions, 1.5 minutes per question should be enough. So 1.5 minutes for 20 questions should take a total of 30 minutes. Now, you have 74 minutes remaining for the ranking questions, which you most definitely need. It is suggested that you don't take more time than the maximum time I've told you, especially if you're flagging your questions.
Let's say you are running out of time. Please just mark everything. Mark anything and just come out the exam. Because there's no negative marking, I would highly recommend you mark everything, at least to get some points for that. If you have a little more time, but you feel like you won't be able to finish on time or you're struggling, the best technique that I found to answer the ranking question especially is that mark the most appropriate and least appropriate first, and then rank 3 in the middle. That really makes it very clear which one is number 1, which one is number 5, and then 2, 3, and 4 can come somewhere in the middle. This will also be really helpful if you're running out of time, because you'll get at least 2 right, and then you can randomly mark the middle 3.
Tip number 3 is suggested because despite ranking being a difficult section, it is where you will always score marks. Each option in the ranking section has 4 marks. If all options are ranked correctly, you get 20 marks per question. If you use tip number 3, that is picking the most obvious correct answer and the most obvious incorrect one, that's going to ensure you higher marks despite running out of time. So if you use this, you will get a minimum of 16 out of 20 marks, which is a pretty good deal, especially when you're running out of time. If you want to understand how this works, I've explained this in more detail at the end of this video.
Another important thing to keep in mind is that you want to answer the questions at your level. So a lot of the answers might seem appropriate, but they might not be appropriate for an FY1 to do. So make sure that you're answering the questions at an FY1 level, not as a consultant, not as a director or a medical student. The appropriateness might really depend on those, and all the answers might seem correct, but only one might be appropriate for an FY1 to be doing. So keep that in mind.
First of all, use a book or a alternative study bank like Past Medicine to familiarize yourself with the questions and the format of the exam. Secondly, we would then tell you to follow either our course or to follow our study technique with the paper 1 of the UKFPO sample papers that come with answers. Then we tell you, after doing paper 1, to move on to paper 2 of the UKFPO sample papers with the knowledge that you've learned from the course or by using the technique yourself, and apply that and see where you are and what kind of questions you're struggling with, and then maybe go through those again, go through the rules again, go through maybe good medical practice. And then lastly, we'd say go ahead and do the mock Pearson VUE paper, which is on the Pearson VUE website. It's the new paper, it has the ranking questions as well. And we'd say you do that last because it's timed and it's a mock that's going to be the closest to your real exam. So you'll really come to know where you're struggling and where you need to focus, how to divide your time, and also you'll get acquainted with the format and the software that you're going to have to use on the day of the exam, because your exam is also going to be an online exam.
Skillshare can be accessed for free if you sign up for a free account, and there's 7-day trials, there's 2-month free trials, there's codes that you can find in a bunch of YouTube videos. And so it was important for us that you guys could access the course for free or a nominal fee. So you could do that, or you could buy 1 month of Skillshare, which is I think $12. And hopefully this will really help you to study. If you want, you can try to do this method yourself with a friend as well, and come up with your own rules if you'd like. But this is the study technique that I would recommend for this exam.
So if you put the ranking in the correct order, you get 4 marks for each option, hence you'll get 20 marks per question. Suppose you decided your most appropriate and least appropriate answer correctly, that will be 4 marks for each option. Now the combinations of the middle 3 can be as follows. Now look at the first combination. B is in the correct rank, hence 4 marks for B. D is 1 place away from its model rank, so 1 point is removed, that is 3 marks for D. And C is also 1 place away from its model rank, so 3 marks for C, and that totals 18 marks. Likewise, if you look at the third combination, C is 1 place away from its model rank, so that's 3. D is also 1 place away, so that's also 3. B is, however, 2 places away, so 2 points are taken away, so 2 points are given to B, and that equates to 16 points.
Lastly, check out the description box. There's going to be loads of links in there. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can either leave them down below in the comments or message us on our Instagram or our Facebook page or through our email. And hopefully this has been helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. And hopefully I'll see you guys in our next video.